Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. WildMax1 here bringing another Raid Shadow Legends video. And today we're going to be doing another champion guide on the channel, this time on the Force Mythical champion from the Knights Revenant faction, Embrys the Anomaly. That's right, we're going to be doing a champ overview. I'll be breaking down his skills, showing you different build variants, and finally we're going to be showcasing him in Arena. And with that, let's get into it. So Embrys was released in November of 2024. He came out as part of the Chimera Clan Boss reward. He is a free mythical in Raid Shadow Legends, one of the few, and you earn his fragments from the chests in the Clan Boss, and right around now, which is April timeframe of 2025, players are starting to summon him, and he's starting to pop up in places like Arena. Now, he brings with him some incredibly powerful abilities, like a guaranteed stone skin strip, potentially meta-changing in Arena. So to better understand this champ, let's take a look at his kit. Okay, so unlike with other champion guides where I usually start with the A1, in this case, we're going to start with Embrys' passive. He has a unique mechanic called Necrosis that we're going to need to know about before we can understand how it affects all of his other abilities. All right, so passive is called Wrongful Existence. Whenever an enemy is killed, places one Necrosis stack on all other enemies. Necrosis stacks cannot be resisted or blocked. Necrosis stacks can only be removed by reviving dead allies. Does not work on bosses or minions. If there are multiple champions on the same team with this skill, it only happens once. And at the start and end of Embrys' turn, he instantly activates any Necrosis stacks on all enemies. So looking at the buff descriptions, Necrosis is effectively a dot, a damage over time ability. So when an enemy champion dies, a single Necrosis stack is placed on all other alive enemies. This is basically the same mechanic as in Viper form of the Chimera. So Embrys is linked to the Chimera and has that same mechanic. So each Necrosis stack deals damage equal to 5% of a champion's max HP at the beginning of their turn. For example, if a champion has 3 Necrosis stacks, damage is going to be 15% and so on. So in Embrys' case, he applies the Necrosis stacks and also at the start and end of his turn procs them on all enemies. And if the enemy team can't revive one of their champs because of either a block buffs or they don't have a healer, then this really starts to whittle down the other team and starts to add up over time. All right, now looking at his A1. Fetid Glaive attacks all enemies, destroys each target's max HP by 3, stacking up to 30%. Also increases the duration of one random debuff on all enemies by 1 turn. This effect cannot be resisted if enemies have any Necrosis stacks. So this is where that mechanic comes into play. So each of his abilities is going to be getting stronger, assuming that they have Necrosis stacks, the enemy team. Now looking at his A2. Void Stare. Places a True Fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn and a 50% decrease attack for 2 turns. These effects cannot be resisted if there's any Necrosis stacks, then grants an extra turn. This is on a 5-turn booking down to a 4-turn cooldown and has 20% ignore res built in. So one thing to point out about Void Stare is this is not an attack, so you don't have to worry about weak hitting. He is a affinity champion. He's not Void, so weak hits are a thing for him. And in this case, this is just straight up placing a True Fear on the enemy team along with decreased attack. All right, now looking at the A3 of his base form, the Unmaking. Attacks all enemies, removes any stone skin buffs, and replaces them with True Fear debuffs. Block debuffs buffs will be replaced with block buffs debuffs. Also removes any buffs positively affecting stats and replaces them with their mirrored debuff equivalent. Okay, so essentially think of it as anything that is a positive buff, he will replace that with its negative debuff counterpart. So increased attack becomes decreased attack, strengthen becomes weaken, etc. Then steals 5% of each target's turn meter for each buff converted. Also decreases the turn meter of all enemies by 20%. None of these effects can be resisted if the enemies have any Necrosis stacks. Wow. Okay, let's give this a second. Let's break this down. So the stone skin component, the removed stone skin component of this ability is unresistible. It is guaranteed, assuming they don't have Lightning Cage protecting a stone skin debuff and it procs on the stone skin debuff. This ability, regardless of accuracy, no matter whether they have Necrosis or not, will always remove the stone skin debuffs. The rest of it, the turn meter, the the positive into negative, all that will require accuracy unless they have necrosis stacks on them. And this is going to be on a 5-turn booking down or a 4-turn cooldown, again, with built-in ignore res. What an ability. And this is truly the one that is currently and soon, as of the filming of this video, going to be really changing up some of the meta in Arena, because a guaranteed stone skin strip is something that is going to bring out a lot of lightning cages. It's going to change the way people tune their speed. This is really, really something that is meta defining in Arena. All right, we've got half the champion down. The last ability, of course, is Metamorph, and we're going to Metamorph him right now and take a look at his alternate form. So, starting with his passive again, he once again has, called the Generator, we do have the necrosis component here, right? It's the same necrosis component as we saw in the base form. However, here he has additional effects. So, when this champion dies, reflects damage equal to 50% of the fatal hit back to the attacker, including any surplus damage. So if he's at like 5% HP and a Taras uses his A3, that is 50% of that is going straight back to the Taras. The cooldown here does not affect the passive. It only affects the active effect. And the active effect is if this champion is about to get killed by a fatal hit, preempts that hit, and instantly places a revive on death buff on them for 1 turn before the damage is taken. So that combined with his passive effect means effectively, assuming he doesn't have a block buffs on him, this champ can receive a giant fatal hit and then reflect that back, kill the attacker, and then revive back as if nothing happened. That's on a 5-turn cooldown. What a powerful passive. Now, obviously, having a block revive on him or having that block buffs on him is going to prevent this from taking effect for the active, but still an incredibly powerful passive. Even if he's not able to revive back, he could potentially kill whoever kills him, taking them out of the game. If it's their only nuker, you know, that really sets the other team back. And this has a huge potential for being a momentum swing in an Arena match. All right, now let's take a look at the rest of the kit. So A1, Unmaker's Blade. Attacks one enemy, places an extra hit if the target has any necrosis stacks. Also places a block revive debuff if this attack kills an enemy. So we see on his A1, potential double hitter, assuming you already have one of the enemies dead, and he places block revive. So if the enemy has any hope of getting rid of their necrosis stacks, if you kill somebody with the A1 in his alternate form, block revive them, they're just stuck with necrosis for the rest of the match. All right, now looking at the A2, Atomize. Attacks all enemies, deals double damage to enemies whose accuracy is lower than this champion's accuracy, and ignores 50% of each enemy's defense whose accuracy is equal to or higher than this champion's accuracy. On a 4-turn cooldown, booking down to 3, this is his primary nuke on his kit. His both forms, this is his hardest hitting ability. Now, a little bit confusing when you're thinking about how to build this champ, right? Because do you either go for high accuracy or low accuracy? So that's something we're going to discuss in the builds portion of the video, but just know that either way, this is going to be dealing a lot of damage, right? Assuming you have enough ignore defense built in, if you have the double damage, incredibly powerful, and if you don't have 100% ignore defense, this is going to get you there. All right, we're almost there. A3 in his alternate form, your life is forfeit. Swaps HP with an enemy. If the target is a boss, fully restores this champ's destroyed max HP and fully heals this champ instead. Each time this skill is used, increases this champ's ignore defense effect by 10% while in their alternate form. Stacks up to 50%. So right there, and this is on a 5, booking down to a 4-turn cooldown, and then this grants an extra turn. So we see right here, with this 50% ignore defense and the one built into his A2, you could potentially, without any ignore defense percent gear, have 100% ignore defense. Now, obviously, this one stacks up, takes a while to ramp up. You could potentially need to decide the match way before you get there. But the fact that even if you only get to use this once, it still gives you just 10% extra ignore defense on his A2. If you want to use it that one time in Arena, excellent ability. And the fact that it lets you swap HP with somebody, so if he gets low or if his Degenerator passive procs and he gets rezzed after he potentially knocks out an enemy damage dealer and he's low, he can swap HP with the opponent's potentially reviver or someone else who has high HP, and he's right back into the game. And finally, we just have the auras left, and that's just increase HP for all allies by 35%, and that's consistent in both forms. So what we see here is an incredibly potential diverse build on this champ, right? You could have more of a support style in his base form where you're applying and swapping debuffs, getting rid of Stone Skin, applying True Fears, destroying max HP, and then in his alternate form, you have a damage dealer, very hard to kill, and a real threat with that block revive. So it's going to really depend on what you need for your composition, and we're going to get into that in a moment. First, let's take a look at his stats and what's important for him. So starting off in his base form, we see really high HP total. This is an HP champ, 22,000, really good. Attack, pretty much irrelevant for this champ. Defense, fine. Speed, excellent. 111. That's faster than a Marichka. That's faster than an Elva. This guy is really quick in his base form. In his alternate form, his stats change just a little bit. So his HP goes up. So even more HP, even more damage for him. And his speed drops by 6. And he gets that crit damage because this is a damage form, whereas his first form is a support form. So how you decide you're going to end up building your Embrys and how you're going to prioritize his stats is really going to inform how you're going to build him, right? If you're going to focus more on trying to maintain the utility from that support form in Form 1, in his base form, then you're going to want to make sure you have some good accuracy and good speed and some survivability. If you're going to really go and index into damage, then you want to make sure he's got a ton of HP, some speed, and then crit capped with as much crit damage as you can get. If you want to go somewhere in between, then you can try to get him crit capped, try to get good HP on him, as much speed as you can get on him, and then as much accuracy and crit damage as you can get on him. And he becomes a really, really stat-hungry champion. So I think that going that hybrid route is going to be more viable as people get higher star and awakening levels on Embrys. But in the beginning, it's probably going to be beneficial to choose either going strictly the support route and going that accuracy route or going with a strictly damage route. So Embrys is primarily, at least from the looks of it right now, going to be an arena-defining champion, right? So I've been using him in Arena, and for me, I've found that the best use that I get out of him right now is by going full damage on him. Currently, it's all going to depend on what you have in your comps, what kind of champs you have on your account. So if you already have a lot of champs that you're confident with that can deal with potentially stripping buffs, or that can deal with that support role that his base form really provides, then you can choose to have him be a strict damage dealer. And that's exactly what I've done. So I've put my Embrys in 4-piece Stone Skin and 4-piece Lethal. Typical setup for an arena nuker, right? And I'll give you 4 reasons why I think this is the best call on this champ, at least right now. So, number 1, I want to make sure that in his alternate form, Atomize is giving me that 50% ignore defense so that it can hit as hard as possible. In my experience, arena fights are often decided within the first turn or the first couple turns, so I want to make sure that he actually goes and gets this ability off and that it hits as hard as possible. Even with that, if I built a ton of accuracy, the double damage is nice, but ignore defense is really what makes an ability hit hard in arena and in general. So that's 1. 2, right now in the meta, we have so many champs that put your abilities on cooldown, right? We have Crixia, Yumiko, Warlord, Fabian. Fabian is everywhere. And there's nothing more frustrating than when you get your turn to nuke and all you can use is your A1 on your primary damage dealer, right? So in Embrys' case, he starts off in his base form. The Fabian comes in, puts everything on cooldown, but it's not going to put Metamorph on cooldown. So then when it comes my turn, I switch him over to his alternate form. I use Your Life is Forfeit, gives me extra 10% ignore defense, gives me an extra turn, and then I atomize their team. Boom. Solves that issue for me completely. Third reason, arguably the best ability in his whole kit is base form, his A3. And the reason it's the best kit is because this is a unique move in the game. It's the only ability currently as of the filming of this video that can guaranteed remove all stone skins on the opposing team. Other than damage or anything, it's just a pure removal. And it requires 0 accuracy. So I don't have to build any accuracy. I can keep him in full damage gear while enjoying the benefits of this stone skin removal if I need it. But if I don't, then I'm going to be in my damage form. I'm going to be in form 2, his alternate form. I'm going to have that Degenerator passive with that incredible active effect on it. I'm going to be able to apply block revives, and I'm going to be able to consistently be getting stronger and dealing more damage because of that stacking ignore defense. Or kill one of their champs permanently using the block revive. And then, if I want to, I can swap back to the first form, and they have a necrosis stack that they cannot get rid of on that comp. So at this point, I don't need accuracy for all these effects anyway, because they will not be able to be resisted because of necrosis. And finally, reason 4, it is definitely a lockout skills meta, but more so than anything else, it's a sheep meta. Right there, that's the reason. I don't want my Embrys to be turned into a farm animal. I'd rather keep him and do damage with him. And so, you know, you can put him in pinpoint, you can try to put him in feral or maybe you have a wand of submission on him, but at the end of the day, it's still going to be likely, given all the buffs he's going to be placing and replacing, that he could be turned into that. And I do not want that to happen. I'd rather, for my comps, keep him as a damage dealer and not a sheep. And with that, let's take a look at how I have my Embrys built. So I have mine, as I already said, lethal and stone skin. For my accessories, we have a defense ring, but it's got great substats. This would ideally be an HP ring. We have crit damage with crit damage ascension on the amulet, HP with HP ascension on the banner, crit damage with crit damage on the gloves, speed with speed on the boots, and we have HP percent on the chest, and this ascension would ideally be percent, not flat stat. For total stats on him in the alternate form, we're looking at 86k HP, 2500 defense, 255 speed, crit capped, around 280 crit damage. Ideally, once I get a blessing on him, it's going to look a lot better. He's going to be closer to 100k, over 3k defense, and over 300 crit damage. Again, note that as a damage dealer for this build particularly, I wanted nothing to do with accuracy at all because I really don't want anything to do with those sheep. So regardless of what you choose to build him in or build him as, I think that having him in one-turn stone skin is going to be really, really useful. Having him, if you're going to go that pure support route, having him go stone skin and supersonic is potentially going to be really good. Those synergize really nicely because with stone skin, you're kind of expecting to be hit first. And then with supersonic, it kind of lets you leap past the potentially faster opponent. You could also put him in feral, as I already mentioned. You could put him in pinpoint, all ways to try to avoid getting sheeped. For damage, you don't necessarily even have to put him in lethal or savage, right? If you index fully into damage and then you have him in that second form, in his alternate form, and you slowly do build up ignore defense, with Helm Smasher and his skills alone, you can eventually get pretty close to 100% ignore defense. I just like to help it along the way. But you can put him in two-turn stone skin if you want. You could put him in, whatever tankier set you have, or just a pure speed set if you even wanted to. However, for me, I find that this is still the most reliable setup for me for a nuker in Arena. So that's what I decided to go with. And with that, let's take a look at what kind of relic I have on him. So on my Embrys, I have a Malefic Talon right now. I'm stretched a little thin on my DPS relics, but this one is fine. It has both stats that he wants as a DPS or as a damage dealer, HP and crit damage, right? Both are good. If you are looking for more of a high-end relic to put him into, then you could come down over here, and there's a couple of really great options. Obviously, Stormcaller is really good. Infernal Prototype is one that I identified as really good for him. HP, speed, both great for him as a damage dealer. Fully resets the cooldowns of this wearer's skills whenever the HP drops below 15%. Now that synergizes really, really well with his Degenerator passive, right? If he gets killed, this effectively is going to make him come back with all of his cooldowns reset. Now, if you don't have something that high end, I've actually considered using the Hatter's Reserve on him just to give him that 5% extra damage to enemies with lower max HP than him. But if you're going to be going more of the support route with your Embrys, I don't think you can get away from Wand of Submission. In this meta with all of these debuffs and sheep especially, this is probably going to be your best bet in that case. And I may even consider putting him in this even as a damage dealer. Now, as you can see, I don't have any blessings on my Embrys. He's still pretty fresh on my account. I haven't had a chance to awaken him yet. But if I were to go for an awakening for him, I would probably choose Lightning Cage initially just to help protect my Stone Skin buff. Alternatively, I could also go with Temporal Chains to reduce the enemy's speed and potentially get that decreased turn meter. Especially if you're going the support route with him, this can synergize nicely with his A3. Then if you're going damage route, obviously, I mean, Life Harvest, you can always throw on him. Soul Reap, really good. If you're going the damage route, Life Harvest really works for any of his builds. And then, of course, if you get high enough with your Awakening, Polymorph's always going to be effective. For the Masteries on my Embrys, as you already know, I've decided to go with a Helm Smasher just because I'm really going for that damage dealer build, and I really want to make sure that he hits as hard as possible, as early as possible. Not waiting for him to ramp up with his A3 on his alternate form. So let me move myself so you can actually see here. Okay, so went down the offense tree, picked up Helm Smasher. Then in Arena, lots of shields, went with Shield Breaker. Whirlwind of Death and Kill Streak just help make him stronger as the match keeps going on. Cycle of Violence helps him get through more abilities. Methodical. So on his alternate form A1, that block revive and that potential double hitter with Necrosis stacks, Methodical is going to be really strong on him. It's going to let him build up that and do 10% extra damage on that, potentially blocking revive on even more champs. And for secondary skill, decided to go down the defense tree because I'm not worried about accuracy at all. I'm actually trying to get as little as possible on him. And I decided to go with improved parry, delayed death, make him more tanky, and once again, a chance for a counterattack, hopefully with that A1 on his alternate form to block revive. All right, so let's showcase what Embrys can do in Classic Arena. Let's try to find a team with one good damage dealer. There we go. All right, so we've chosen a team to build around Embrys with a speed booster, with Ancora to keep the debuffs off him, and UDK give him a little extra tankiness. Nice thing about having an Embrys in damage is it's easy to set up his AI, right? So I have him using Metamorph turn 1 and then immediately prioritizing his A3 in his alternate form, which will boost his ignored percent defense, and then going in for his A2. And that's going to work the same way in defense teams in like Tag Team Arena or in Siege, for example. So let's watch this one play out on auto and see how it works. All right, so my Arbias goes first. See if he comes in. They catch up a little bit. Then he comes in, he swaps, he uses A3, and he knocks him down. All right, so here we saw the Necrosis stacks apply to them. Then they got revived, obviously, so then those are gone. Here he kills the Thor and blocks his revive. So that he would have been gone for the rest of the match. And then the cleanup. So as we saw, that's how the Necrosis stacks apply. As soon as one champ dies, they go to the rest of the team, and then he has all those unresistible effects on all of his abilities on the rest of the team. All right, so for this next one, I really want to showcase how he can still use the most useful part of his base form A3, even though he has no accuracy. So here we have a team, all mythicals. We're going to go in here. We're going to see that several of them, most of the team, is going to be sitting under Stone Skin, including one intercept buff over here. All right, so let's buff up, and then let's get rolling here. So we're going to use that A3 and hopefully remove all the Stone Skin. All gone. He has 170-ish accuracy, a little bit more, I guess, with the increase there. But again, for a Galathier built right, that wouldn't even touch it, right? So in this case, completely strips all that off. We're not even concerned with it. All right, now let's try to finish out this match and showcase what he can do with the rest of his kit as a damage dealer. Okay. So their primary threat on their team is this Carnage right here. So my goal is going to be to try to kill him with my A1 on my alternate form. So let's see if I can do that. Also, we know from before the match that none of them are sitting under polymorphs. So if I want to, I can throw out a Void Stare at them just to see if I can potentially get a few of them. 3 on their team got affected by it, which is excellent. And it gives me an extra turn. So now I can still change into my alternate form, use my A3 on their damage dealer, and then I want to go in and I want to try to, I could use my Atomize, but I really want to go in and try to kill him so that he's out of the match. Gone. Now everybody else is under Necrosis, and then for the rest of the match, they pretty much don't have a damage dealer. So now we're going to just watch how the rest of this plays out. He uses his A2. Everybody falls except for Galathier. He tries to res, but the Carnage stays down because of the block revive, and now he block revives the Nell. Nell is now gone, and he's just going to finish this out once more using that A3, A2 combo. Galathier's passive keeps him alive for just another minute. But at this point, he's working with half a team and no damage. And there it is. Over. That's how powerful his A1 can be in a match. How much it can decide whether you're going to win or not if you get rid of their DPS early on. In this final arena showcase, I really want to demonstrate how he can use his Degenerator passive to completely turn the tides or take out one of the DPS on the opposing team, right? So let's go in here. We've got some damage dealers. Definitely somebody that should be able to nuke down Mr. Embrys here. Okay, let's boost up. I don't want to put shields. I want to make sure that he dies. Let's not have this Armand's take a turn and do stuff. All right, let's switch into alternate form. Just use an ability. Sure, why not? Let's take him out. Everybody, once again, Necrosis stacks. All right. I don't want to impede their damage dealers in this case. Let's just hit her. Okay, so we had March of 10 go off from the Georgid there. And then there we go. Perfect example. That was quite the interaction there. So their Genbo killed Embrys. Embrys is the generator procced, dealt damage using the passive part of the passive to Genbo, killing him. Then the active effect put a revive on death on my Embrys before he died. He rezzed, and then, yeah, and then Lydia was able to res my Arbias. All right, and with that, let's just finish out the rest of the match. Just to show you, yeah, just to bring some closure to it here, I guess. All right, so there you have it. Again, the Degenerator passive took out one of their DPS, keeping Embrys alive, and just swinging it, having me have the man advantage in the arena, super strong, and it's just one of the best parts of his kit, other than his Stone Skin strip, in my opinion. And there you have it, everybody. Embrys the Anomaly. Free mythical, phenomenal champion, diverse kit, can be built a lot of different ways, excels in wave-based content and arena if built right. Hopefully, this guide helped get you there. If you liked today's guide, please let me know down in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know if you want any other guides for other champions. Thank you for watching the video. Thank you for your time. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.